Hey everyone, the audio quality on this one won't be the greatest since we recorded it on my phone really last minute, and we're kind of learning how to do all of this along the way, but hopefully in the future, once we have more know-how and a better workflow for all of this, it'll sound way better. So until then, here you go. The first thing that I was thinking for the podcast was obviously you stated that we needed structure for it, right?
I think we need an identity.
Yeah, an identity and then structure following the identity.
Yeah.
So obviously first we'll need to establish what we want to talk about because every podcast has a main topic that they follow through and like, for example, music podcasts, gaming podcasts are what I'm into, or technology podcasts, or like life coach advice podcasts. So we'll figure that out first, but what I want to figure out from you, since you'll obviously be the other main person involved in this, if we do this, is would you rather have me or you come up with sort of general topics that are relevant to the wider audience that are involved with the podcast that we would think we would listen to? So this means maybe finding the Reddit articles that are at the top of the front page and then making our own commentaries on it? Or would you prefer that we take things into these specific areas of our own interests? So for you, obviously, it would be music.
I think
following much more deeper into music, or for me, following much more intricate into like gaming or technology or sustainability interests that we can each individually give more insight into.
Well, I think we do both. I think it would be useful to talk about stuff like broader structure, so that it ties more into like what everyone else, like what people are more comfortable or what are more aware of. And then anytime we do it, we delve into another topic that is the specific interest of one of us, and then we can play off of that. I think another important thing is we drink, because
it opens up, it gives us a little bit of like gung-ho-ness to talk about.
I think I was gonna say it sort of releases inhibitions and it makes it easier to do that. No, I like the idea of like gathering current events and just responding to them. Or current events doesn't have to be news. It could also just be like, we can talk about like meme trends, like have you seen this meme, or have you seen this
we're dumb millennials that can talk about anything.
And I've always had this like interest in sort of studying the sociological paths of like internet culture. And I think that what this group sort of embodies really, really well is just like how the internet affects people who have basically branched off into differing fields, but have like been kept together through the internet. And then like the internet's been like this great thing for all of us, and we use it as a tool for so many different things, and so many ways of staying in touch with each other. Like not in the sense that we're like Facebook friends or Instagram friends or some shit, but like we bond over certain common aspects of the internet. And so I think being able to talk about those things too would be really interesting. And so like I think it would be useful for us to talk like it. So before we even decide like on what to talk about, we just like shoot the shit. I think shooting the shit and the hang is like the essential building block of how we would run this. And it's like once we get into a specific topic, or we start on a specific topic, that's we write it down.
I agree.
And we say like, this is something that we should talk about, and this is something that's really useful for us. Or like even today with Elise, we had like someone in college, and we had the
an outside voice.
We had the postgraduate. We're all out of college now, and we're just out of college, and then we have a friend of ours who's in college, and we ask them about what it is, and we just sort of like shoot the shit. I think that's the fundamental property of what this podcast would be like, and whether or not it's informative, or whether or not it helps us people, I think, is besides the point. I think it's rather capturing conversation for ourselves.
I agree.
Yeah. So like, and so I think like the introductory periods or the introductory like pilot to the show would be like us talking. Just like all of us like just having some sort of talk, like not a serious one, but just like
kind of just like what we regularly do, right? We just like, bring up something that happened recently. And we can kind of just talk about it and then bring up what we think about is happening.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like I think all of these ideas of like, oh, we should do a podcast always come out of those times when we just shoot the shit and like we're all just there and we're having like good and like reasonable conversation about a topic that is relevant to all of us in different ways. And so like shooting the shit is like the coolest thing. And then we can talk about all of our other specific interests, as I mentioned before. Yeah, I've been on board for the longest time.
Yeah, no, I have. Yeah, especially since I took up listening to other podcasts.
Yeah.
Shout out to Funhouse and Super Mega because they're kind of the two YouTube channels that inspired me to do this.
Yeah.
One of the weird things, aside from the fact that I just like straight up like talking to you guys and just like listening, because that's having one-on-one conversations or like having group conversations is something that I've grown to like in recent years, because not only do I acknowledge that it helps me gain insight to other people's opinions, but it also helps me learn how to hold conversation better with people.
Yeah, I remember we had this conversation about the practicality and the sort of like the rehearsed idea of having a good conversation. Being a conversationalist isn't necessarily like it's not an indicator or a consequence of your charisma. It's more like you practice.
Yeah, it's 100% a practice skill.
Right, and that's a really interesting concept.
So like after establishing that was something that I wanted to pursue and that was something I wanted to do better.
I think what was really cool was like after you started getting into Twitch streaming, that this whole idea seemed a lot more plausible.
Yeah.
Even especially after last week too, when we were doing like we were just like playing a game and like being us.
Yeah.
And we were
it was fun. It was fun. It was so much fun.
It was so fun, and like we were able to just like people were entertained and were like bantering with us, and I think like that was a really cool instance of what could happen and what doesn't necessarily have to happen, but like the sort of excitement and the sort of interactivity that we can get out of that.
It's a new and exciting avenue for us to express ourselves.
I love it. I thought it was like one of the coolest things. I didn't even realize that we'd get anyone. I was just like, this is just a
I know, right? Like after Boomer hung out with us, man. But like it's weird because like it's a way for us to still maintain our inner circle, I guess you could say. And like just being within ourselves, but still a way to express ourselves to people outside of that circle, like who we are, without having to deal with like the in-person awkwardness that might come with being like, hey, this is a person I know, I want to come over and just like say, and like that might, I don't want to say that it ruins the atmosphere that might come with that. Yeah. But like it's safe, you know. It doesn't have to. You don't have to worry about outside risks when it comes.
It's definitely like it's definitely like you're creating your own atmosphere and you're creating your own world, and so like it takes away like that. It takes away the like all the practicality of how you've rehearsed your your conversations, and I think like it like the essence of a podcast and it's like its aesthetic properties of like being both communal and also not are really interesting, and that could be something that we inevitably talk about in the pilot. But I think that like the podcast like idea definitely needs to start happening. Like we might as well now. Like
so that was one of the other things that I was actually during the 4th of July. I was hanging out with a bunch of my high school friends. Because they're like the other group of friends that I hang out when I'm not hanging out with you guys. I'm not ragging on them at all because obviously they're my friends. Everyone just takes different routes, right?
But
for them, for the pretty much all of them, they're kind of taking the traditional route of like, you go to school to learn a specific trade or specialize in a specific topic, and that's what your career becomes, right?
Yeah.
But for me, like I'm sure you've already realized as soon as I started thinking that this Twitch thing could become a real thing.
Yeah.
I like to take on creative projects or things that are kind of outside of the norm because I don't want to toot my own horn here, but as somebody who is very up to date with what internet culture is like, you can literally make a career out of talking to other people or creating videos and putting it out there. And we're the first generation that has seen that sort of job. And because we're the first generation that has seen the sort of freedom with what our career paths can take, there's so much uncertainty with it that people who are within the traditional sphere of traditional jobs, as in going to college, getting a degree in a specific field, and then making that field their entire career for their entire life.
Conventions are broken.
The conventions are broken because of the technology that is available to us. And I, just as me, as somebody who's influenced largely by the internet and by the media that they consume, and acknowledging that there are opportunities out there, taking the outside opportunities that other people who are stuck inside these traditional mindsets don't see.
They're like boxes.
I want to take those opportunities, and because I sort of, on one hand, I feel like if I don't at least try this out, even if it doesn't work out for me, I'll be happy that I tried it.
No, and I think you have a real gusto for it, and you have like this, like you have a strong passion for this type of thing. Absolutely. So if anyone is gonna try it out and try their hand at it, it's got to be you. I mean, like I would, except for that I don't have nearly as much like technical prowess or like as much know-how.
But you could still definitely be the auxiliary part of it, whereas like you don't have to be the person helming that technology burden or that knowledge burden, but you'll still be the part of it. That's where contributes.
That's where like teamwork and community makes a big deal, because like we all add different parts of it. The sort of nature that our group has had for a long time, where we're all like different auxiliary parts to a collective whole.
I agree.
No, I totally get that. I think that especially America is built on that, like you go to school for a specific trade, you do that trade your entire life, and then along the way you do exciting things. But I think the creative endeavor, to take like the internet and to take internet culture as an outlet for creative endeavor is something that you don't really hear too often. And I think that like because people talk about I want to be no one ever hears I want to be a YouTuber. It's always like people have creative projects that they create, they have, and that they just start to put on YouTube really slowly, and then inevitably, because of their like, either because of how they do it or because of like the genuine nature of their craft, it starts to gather a group of followers. And so I think that it's important to exercise your creative mind and to always like follow the rabbit holes. I think, and I mean, coming from someone whose entire career is based off of like a creative projects.
Definitely.
We're like all of, and that's an interesting thing, because like it's interesting in that like how you've got your friends over there who like have this conventional, I went to school for this, I will get a job in this field. Like my jobs are all in a specific field, but I like to say that I like to almost brag about how like being a musician, you do all these really weird things. Like I've been house sitting the last 2 weeks, and it pays, and I didn't go to school to house sit or any of that shit, but like I'm doing it, and it's paying bills for me, like or I'm like I get asked to do some weird things, like I'll play for this group of people, or I'll go teach over here, or I'll be like a part of this community. And so like it only provides you like different ways of looking at more creative projects. And I think that like I think that being that type of person and being in that sort of field that's so open, and I think you're experiencing that right now, because you have an interest.
I have a traditional degree.
You have a traditional degree, but then your interests are in like internet culture and things around it, and then also like something that's really niche. And so like and that inevitably will lead you to like different sort of random weird shit jobs. Absolutely. know. And so and I think like that aspect of millennial culture is so overlooked, and you know, it's almost like looked as if like you're just winging it. And I mean, to a certain extent, we are just winging it.
It really is.
You know, but also I think that's just sort of the people we've become, like the people that our generation has had to become, and then also the people that have been born out of a specific like economic mindset, and people born out of the internet, where like the internet has provided so many different avenues of understanding and avenues of like opportunity. So you could never, nobody from this time period to the next could ever really fathom what the new thing or new opportunity is. You know, like
it just happens so fast.
Like YouTube happens in 2005, almost like almost on accident. Like it just sort of comes out of the blue. All of these big social media platforms that have come to like control every part of our lives has been like, it was this small little thing. And it was a creative project, a creative endeavor that became something huge. And so like, that just is just a microcosm of how the internet provides these endless opportunities. And I think like using this podcast to sort of exercise that, and to sort of look at what we can do with it, and what sort of creative outlets we can use it for, is an important part of this group of people. Especially since I don't know, we all like doing it, and we all have such a good rapport.
We're young, we're hip.
Might as well, like while we're still hip. Right?
I personally think that we also have the benefit of, I've talked to other people about this, and it's a weird thing to talk about, because whenever I bring it up to other people, I tend to like blow their mind per se, because they're like, wow, you know, I've never thought about that way. But whenever I bring up this topic, I always tell people, us that were born in maybe I'd say the 80s to like
2000,
either late 90s or early 2000s. I still say that we're on the tail end of it, because we're like 94. But us that were born in that 20-year gap, we are literally the last generation of people that are born into an era where everything that we do or everything that we want isn't immediately put onto the internet. Literally all history. As in the foreseeable future, bearing like the hardware, that the servers that contain this information. But what the fuck do you know? Like, if you put something on the internet, there's that quote: if you put something on the internet, it's out there forever. Which, as far as most people know, is true, because there will probably be somebody who, if they see a picture of you, they'll save it. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Like it's just out there.
I think that's something that I've talked about with a few people before as well. It's just like to put it more
it's weird.
More simply, is like,
so we're
that generation that has our foot in both doors.
We're like, absolutely.
We grew up without it, but then we also but a large part of our formative years were with the internet as well. So like for example, our parents, you could also say that they, well, you can't say it. You know that they are growing up with the same technology that we are growing up with. Like Facebook is obviously a huge integrated part in everybody's lives. YouTube, whatever, social media in general. But our parents don't necessarily have the same grasp on that technology that we do. So like for our parents, or like what they say for a lot of people, like especially old people, you'll make that joke where it's like, oh, old people don't understand how Facebook works, because they straight up don't. Like, it's just they've been living the majority of their lives without that technology, and so it's something foreign to them. And also, it's just not practical. It's like not something that they've had the chance to sort of to work with and to debug themselves. Whereas like with us, we grew up with Facebook. Like Facebook on these big social media platforms are something that we got to test out actively and got to like make a part of our active lives. You know, that's why you know, older
special.
people. That's why older people don't really understand it so much, is they've never really had to use it. Career wise.
That's also the weird bridging point where I feel like people, for us who understand how the internet and modern technology works, we have to act as the bridge between the generations before us and after us, where the people who are older than us, who don't understand the efficiency that comes with the technology that we have not necessarily grown up with, but adapt to very well with, have to translate that into not only our lives, but acknowledge the fact that that's going to be a very integrated part into the generations that come after us lives. So like we were already saying, we are the generation that has grown up with before that technology and after. So we understand how technically the old generation works. We understand what their viewpoints are on it and why they like to keep everything the same. They don't like to change anything. Yeah. But we also acknowledge that the generations that come after us, this has literally been a part of their life since the beginning of their lives.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, especially people born in my sister's youth or after, where they grew up with phones and they grew up with like the internet at their disposal.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we didn't have that until we were like middle school, high school, right?
At the very latest, or very earliest, really. I had a phone. You kind of said really. I didn't have a phone that had access to the internet until I was a sophomore in high school. I had an iPhone, and that's when things for me got different. I could change. But before then, I had a cell phone that wasn't really big. I used it to call my mom, and then I had a Razor.
Everybody had a Razor. I had a Razor.
And you really couldn't do too much with that. Like, you could get a cool ringtone, you could text people with your TA or whatever, T piece of shit. And then you could play games on it. Mm-hmm. And then comes the iPhone, and the iPhone becomes...
It changes everything.
Everything.
Holy
there's a stat that I had read where the iPhone was introduced in 2008. And by 2000 and is it 14 or 15? About like 70% of all adults in the UK had an iPhone. Had some sort of smartphone, and I think it's incredible that like over the course of only 7 or 8 years, that over half the population of adults integrates and has one. Yeah. And think about it now, 2018. How many people do you know don't have like a quote unquote?
Yeah, almost nobody, right?
It's insane that like this sort of technology just takes hold over the course of 10 years. And I think that's like, I think like when as we get older, we sort of become the preservation of of an age that didn't have the internet. Yeah. And I think that there's an interesting thing to be said about that as we are in essence like a preservation, and how like our generation is like really primarily interested in nostalgia, and how we draw back to like our childhoods, and we draw back to like how we grew up, and then we combine it with the ease of access that the internet provides us, and then we recycle all of these old things that we've experienced. I mean, if we can use like the SpongeBob like pictures or the SpongeBob memes as like a case study, it's really interesting to see how we take. What's up,
Aaron?
See you later, bro. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how we take like the SpongeBob like things and like we provide commentary, and then we recycle them, and we provide more commentary. And, all these memes start serving different captions. Like they have different captions, they have different situational things that are going around it. I think that's like one of the most interesting things that I've ever like been present to experience, is just like all of the weird shitty memes that have come out. And then all the outcrops of meme pages and all of these weird surreal sort of a drawback to like what is like existence, and what are we even doing. Like all of this culture right now is reactionary to a certain extent.
I agree.
To the internet. I love it. I think it's one of the most like it's. I mean, if we are characterized by one thing, it's the internet. At this point.
Well, absolutely. Even to this point in history, I'm sure like, if not like 99% of people will agree that like the internet has been the greatest human creation.
Oh, I would say so.
In all of history, maybe. I mean, we haven't been this connected ever.
I think like the idea of networking and a big network doesn't really become a big deal until the internet, until the 80s.
Yeah, because you can literally you can decide, hey, I want to have a conversation with somebody in China. You just pull up fucking Discord of somebody in China, and you have a conversation with them. That was not available 20 years ago, maybe even. that's how new this stuff is, and it's really weird because
yeah, I mean, so in the late 90s is when people started to get a lot more interactive with their internet use.
Yeah,
like email started getting big in the latter half of the 90s, and so just if you think about that, like that was only 20 years ago.
20 years ago
when it started getting big, and now email is such an integrated part of society. It's almost impossible to think about how we can function without
it. Yeah,
right, or without that sort of interconnectivity.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation about like modern society.
Yeah.
There's one half that accepts it, and then there's another half that rejects it out of either ignorance or they just don't want to. That's a conversation that we can keep for like I feel like that's a good topic to touch on.
Yeah, I think
for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, in just how we pursue it, I think that's really interesting. I think that like when I was writing my paper about jazz and about how jazz affects the internet, or jazz is affected by the internet, and how like and what sort of comes out of the music industry because of the internet, I think like what was most, I guess the coolest thing for me to find out was just like how systems come in. First about how the internet is a mirror of like how the TV worked.
Yeah.
Essentially, the TV came about as TV was a military thing where like they created it for the sake of the military. The state funded it. The internet is around the same thing. The genesis of the internet comes because of the it had a military use, and it was dictated by that, and the state funded it. And so once it got through that, it was taken by pop culture, and it sort of just moved everywhere, and it proliferated endlessly. And I think that like that was such an interesting thing because we can sort of trace the actions of the internet along the same lines that we can trace the actions of TV culture, and how TV culture affected TV culture brought on another like era of leisure and a need for leisure activity. Yeah. And so the leisure that we see with the internet's a different type of leisure, but something that would deserve discussion as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey.
That's right. That's a whole nother conversation I'm gonna write down some of these things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because we could just talk about this stuff for hours, just because that's like the kind of people that we are.
Yeah.
So
there's a book that you might be really interested in if you're interested in this sort of thing. I read a lot of it before I was writing. It's called it's called like Social Media Systems. It's by a guy named I'll have to look him up again. He's in this paper that
Karl Marx.
Yeah, I wish. Karl Marx on the internet. Now this guy, his name is like Mankey or something like that.
Mankey.
And he writes that he wrote a short, maybe 120 page book about social media and about how social media is proliferated, and then the systems that they use to get us on it. Essentially what he does is he this guy hates Facebook, so he uses Facebook as the case study, but he talks about how like a lot of social media platforms arose. The idea of social media comes out of a business standpoint, and to disconnect social media from its business and marketing origins would be to betray its roots and to betray what it's really about. And that's sort of interesting because then now with like Cambridge Analytica, and we see with all these sort of things where like all of these social media platforms are selling your information, and it's coming to the surface now. That's stuff that's been happening for like years. Yeah. And I think like when you look at even the mission statements of all of these social media platforms like YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, they all say the same thing, but they paint themselves to be these paragons of social culture. And they say that they claim that, we're all about keeping you connected with what's most important to you, when really it's all about, we want you to click and we want you to like look at all these things that we're putting up here so that we can collect more data on you, and we can more effectively sell you things. And that's essentially the basis for social media, is that it's collecting data so it can sell you things more effectively. And I think the big thing that he talks about and that I got from that whole section is the dubiousness and the sort of the way that they go about it is so dubious and so like undermining, and so it sort of betrays you because you don't expect it to be like against you, and you don't expect it to be like something that you would have to be wary of. Yeah. But at the same time, like these things are in their nature, like not to be trusted. And so like I think it comes at no surprise that like that all of these things have been collecting all of your data and selling them. It's abhorrent and it's terrible, but also like if we really think about the origin of social media, like we can see that it's definitely something that we could have at least predicted. And so I'll find the name of that book and I can
I'll be interested in it.
Yeah, it's a short read and it's really interesting. I whenever I'm making plans, I like to be as direct as possible. I don't know, I like to cut the shit.
I'm the same way.
There's no reason to beat around the bush. I think like what happened with me over like all of undergrad is like I just got so sick of having to ask the question, like, when you meet a girl and you're like, oh, does she like me or not? It's like, I had this conversation with one of my friends over dinner one time, and we were just talking. I was on the prospect of like starting to date this girl, and I didn't know if I wanted to like ask her out.
Go for it. Yeah.
And he was like, there's like all these people on this planet, and there's so many things that you can. There's like, there's so many outcomes that can happen. Like, but you never know if you don't do it. And if you strike out, you strike. If you strike out, you strike out.
That is one of my life. That's literally the number one life quote that I live by. Yeah, it's if you don't ask, the answer's already no.
Yeah. So you might as well ask. And so like I guess like if you cut through all of the garbage and you cut through all like any sort of mitigating conversation, and you just are really straight about most things to a degree. You can't just be like this dry like automaton. You have to be like nuanced. So I mean, like if you're just really straight with most things, like, hey, do you want to go out, or hey, do you want to try this, and you're really straight, mostly people will appreciate it.
Because nobody likes to play fucking games.
I know, nobody likes
dumb.
It. And if you do, you're a kid.
Yeah, if you do, you're stuck in
you're a child,
high school.
Yeah. Are you grown? That's pretty good.
The best case is I find a woman to become a trophy husband to.
Yeah.
But then I also miraculously become a YouTuber / Twitch streamer / social media guru.
Yeah.
And make money that way.
You should like. I think this is a really interesting avenue to take. I think like what you could do with this is like you should definitely get your products off the ground. You should just like start having them.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
And then the thing is, you can start using them as leverage for like social media outreach. And it's like that's like an increasingly useful job that people are having now. Like every big company needs social media outreach, and they need people to be like on top of their stuff. And what better people to hire than like the people who grew up in that sort of the culture. And so like, I was talking to Peter about like, we have this mutual friend who went to high school with us, and she's a social media like associate for United Airlines. And that's like
you're like, what is that?
It's the most bullshit title for saying I work memes and I work outreach. Like I'm just a PR person. But that's like a real thing.
It's a thing that's going to happen to literally everyone. So I had this conversation with one of my friends where I told him the days of traditional media, meaning newspaper and to a certain extent TV.
Yeah.
Like traditional cable TV, that's all, like barring sports, that's all gonna die in like the next maybe
10 years, right?
10 if technology keeps progressing at the rate that it does right now, like 10 if we're being quick, 20 probably, 30 definitely.
I mean, like because newspapers are already stopped. They've stopped printing. A lot of them have done that. Like I think New York Times is like very soon to stop printing papers.
Like I don't hang on to any traditional newspapers. I get all my information off Reddit. Is that the best source for information? I don't know, but it's a source of information that's very easily accessible to me and doesn't cost me anything, right?
I think in the future we'll have to have a whole conversation dedicated to Reddit.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
Reddit as a platform is one of the most interesting, and like
it's like the fourth most visited site in the world, or something.
And for me, it has a certain difference to it because of the way the platform is set up.
Yeah,
it's not like Twitter where people post things and like you have long threads of like.
Actually, that's being kind of loud.
You're right. But like with Reddit, it's like.
It's if you describe it in a way, it's the same thing, but also like Reddit is purely driven by its
people,
by its comments and by the conversations that happen in the comment section. I feel like I mean I'm not privy to Twitter, so like you
me neither.
I mean probably Peter's better at that than me.
I'm not on Twitter.
No, I mean like Twitter is something else. Twitter for me is like an entirely different monster than Reddit, and I think that like Reddit is so driven by this communal instinct and by the hive mind. And that like, and you know about that, there's that phenomenon that I think would be worth looking into, which would be like how people will read the titles of the post title
and then just not do
anything and instead of actually reading the article, look to the comments for the substance.
I'm guilty of doing that sometimes.
I actually do that a lot more frequently than I'm willing to admit, but like I think it's almost like it's creating a shortcut, but also like cutting out your it's cutting out your responsibility as a consumer and as someone who has like the ability to like discern. And I think like I agree. And I think it would be really worthwhile to talk about the implications of that practice, especially on a site that has so many like visitors. And also, like, we should probably talk about, like, the demographics of Reddit as well. Like, the demographics essentially being that for the fourth most visited website, it's predominantly male.
Yeah, it is.
And like, the sort of feuds that come out of the culture, like, any sort of, like, Reddit versus Tumblr, Reddit versus 4chan, Reddit versus Twitter, Facebook, anything. I think, like, these social media platforms definitely have, like, defining characteristics to them that you know people meme and that people put out there, and I think that's something that should be that we could talk about for a long time.
Easily, right? We could make like 4 podcasts out of that.
Yeah, I think, and
assuming our baseline's like an hour or something like that.
Yeah, an hour would be good. An hour is like, you know, just
that's easy for us, I think.
Yeah, I remember listening to I was listening to a podcast about my friend, and he talked for about an hour about tax forms. And I think like
interesting
tax form, it's like it came off as he had a friend who was like who I think was in the business of like accounting or something, or was getting a degree in accounting. And shout out to Beantown podcast with Quinn David. But he was they were just talking about like, you know, things that might be useful to you and things that, you know, if you don't know how to do taxes or you're new to doing taxes or what it feels like, it's useful to listen to. And it's just like, these are guys like who are relatable and like who are going through the same thing, you know? So like I think like that is something that this could turn into. And it took about an hour for them to do that. And an hour is what it was cut off. But like, I think trying to define the nature of what we would talk about on the regular is such a weird thing. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts as I drive. It's like, my favorite one right now is called Unspooled. And it's with Amy Nicholson and Pat Scher.
Good plug.
It's just a good plug, and it's from the Earwolf company, I think. And they're just they're going through AFI's 2007 list of 100 movies, and
it's like a movie podcast.
It's about
I low-key love movie podcasts.
Really, really good. And like the conversation, and what drives them is that they have a structure, and that they have like. And that they're both like excellent film critics. But what really gets it is that their identity is based in this is our project and we are doing this. So maybe it would be worthwhile for us to have like small projects like that where we do like the next few episodes we're gonna dedicate to this one thing. And then we talk about it like that. Because then like, you know, we don't get stuck in a rut of it's just the guys talking again. As much fun as
you
that
need variety.
I think like I don't know how fun it would be for anyone else who isn't like
in our circle
and I think that sort of thing is really useful for Twitch, where Twitch is like really interactive right off the bat. You have people who can comment and tell us what to do. We can respond right away. You know, like our relationship with Boomer. That guy was telling us stuff and we were like, well, okay, maybe we'll do it and maybe we won't. And so I think like Twitch is really useful.
Oh boy,
for that.
That's like that. Twitch by itself is like a whole nother like podcast by itself that we can talk about.
I think it'd be cool to marry the two though. Where we just marry the two under like we marry the podcast and the Twitch that we all have together as like as part of the same ideological thing. And then like this is our podcast here. This is our like follow us on Twitch. We stream once a week generally on this day, and we plug that. That would just be like a cool thing, I think.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I don't know. So let's when you've got some free time, let's like brainstorm.
Just all my time.
Yeah. Well,
that's right now. It's all my time.
You should think of like
topics.
Well, think of like a question. Think of something. Think of a few things that are interesting you right now, and like write them down, and then think about other questions that go into that, and shoot them to me in a text or something, and then I'll write down questions for that as well, and then we can pose it to everyone, and then we'll see like who's down, who's available, and we'll do it.
So you pretty much hit on the nail on the head for what I wanted to do. It was like find a general overarching topic that we can all relate to on some level. Yeah. And then after we discuss that this is the topic for the week or whatever, we can all like weigh in our own opinions and stuff.
Yeah. I like the idea of like finding a topic that we can talk about for like 1 or 2 or 3 like periods of time. Yeah. And it gives us time to do some research, and we can think about like
write down our own personal thoughts.
And then we can also, and then it also gives us time to like actively talk about things during the week that are pertinent. So like let's say we're talking about Reddit. If we're talking about Reddit and something happens on Reddit, we can like sort of reference that later, and I think that's
how the audience will connect to us, right?
Yeah. That's like given we get an audience, but I think like
we're doing this for fun.
At the front end of it, it's for fun, and at the front end of it, it's just like to exercise the ability, like our potential to do anything with like social media outreach, and like I mean the podcast has always been heavy on the mind as well, so like might as well.
It's like I always said, the internet nowadays is still the equivalent of the Wild West, in my opinion. Yeah. Where anything goes. Since
like we the cowboys.
We are the 1860 cowboys of the internet at the moment. We're trying to figure out how things work before the big man, the government, gets its claws on it permanently.
Soon coming.
I mean that's what the whole net neutrality thing. That's another topic.
Have you followed anything that's happened in Europe?
Yes, there are copyright issues. Yeah, the copyright claims. Yep. Because it's kind of funny to see how, as far as I have been gathering my information off of Reddit, everyone outside of the U.S. has been like, man, the U.S. is dumb and all their net neutrality stuff. Boom. Like a month later, shit's starting to happen in countries outside of the U.S. And they're like, I mean, obviously there was that demographic of people that were like, they acknowledge that the internet literally involves everybody. Yeah. So there's no way that if it infiltrates one part of the internet that it's not going to seep into another part of the internet. Yeah. Those people knew what was going to happen, and those are the people who are, who's the guy in World War I that's like the British are coming, or World War II?
Oh, you mean Paul Revere?
Yeah, they're the Paul
from the American Revolution.
They're basically the Paul Reveres of the internet today that are saying like, hey, you guys were all making fun of the Americans, but this shit very much has a realistic chance of reaching us too, and Europe's starting to deal with it. China's been dealing with it for a long time. Yeah. On a smaller matter, and now all these other countries are looking to like Western civilizations, internet interactions. It's all starting to seep into them too.
I think America as like as an example of like the sort of fight over the internet is really interesting. Yeah. I mean, like I think what I've been keeping up with is just like the struggle in California right now. Yeah. That's the one thing that's developing quickly. Yeah. And like the most I guess the most imminently. Yeah. And then like I think I think that one of the things that surrounds net neutrality in America is just like generally just a lot of misinformation about what, like misinformation and then lack of publicity. Mm-hmm. Like there's a reason why that not too many people know about like net neutrality and what it's about.
Yeah.
Like there's obviously been like campaigns to like sort of blur the lines of what the internet and net neutrality is about. So it becomes really difficult to explain. And then also just like, because it's not in the interest of the government and the people at power, it like becomes an issue of we don't want people to know about it, so we won't talk about it.
Yeah, that bores into that bores into the idea again that we're the generation that is bridging the gap. So the generation that's not internet connected is the people that are like we don't care or we don't understand enough to have an opinion on this.
Yeah.
Whereas us and the people and the generation above us will grow up with this and be like, well, these are the ground rules that either the generations before us have laid out and it's shitty, we don't like that.
Yeah.
Or this is what we want out of it, but the older generation doesn't understand that, and that's what we're trying to voice to them. Because that difference in knowledge, because of the time, literally the era difference of who grew up with it and who didn't. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the selling point between how the direction of the internet grows. And I think regardless of the direction that it is taken in the next 10 years, because we're still very much in the discovery phase, like I said, the Wild West phase, where we're all trying to figure out where that all happens. And my secluded opinion as a stupid millennial who is very internet cultured, but also acknowledges that there are people outside of that internet culture. I think that regardless of the way that it goes, whether it goes in the favor of the old people who want to keep things the way they are, who want them to conform to the rules that their old media has been performing at, or if it goes into the direction of the new generation who's grown up with it from day one, who sees it in a different light than the older generation, it's going to go in a certain it's going to go towards the new generation, whether or not the old generation likes it or not. And I'm not going to go into deeper in that conversation because that's we can talk about that for another fucking podcast.
What I was thinking about right now is that, so this topic, you've mentioned the phrase like a bunch of times. It's like, it's like the millennials acting as a bridge between old and new. Mm-hmm. I think that ties really well into the idea of the pilot of what this is, because and I think that's something that we should raise that as a point. We should take down, and then as we start the pilot, we talk like this is important to talk about we talk about why we started this, and it's because of this. And I think over the course of this conversation, it's been really clear that this podcast is acting as our avenue for discussing how we feel about this, and the podcast inevitably is characteristic of the bridge between the two, because it's both radio and it's internet. And I think that's a very practical image illustration for what we want to talk about and how we view the podcast as a medium for social interaction. And so I think you should take it down, or take that idea down, and just write questions about it. Write your questions about it, put your thoughts in the margins, and write your opinions on it, and then let every single thing that you think just kind of come out of that, and don't leave no stone unturned, just because this is I think that what better topic than the essence of the podcast,
starting a podcast in the first place.
What's the point? Right? What's a better topic than that in relation to the whole ideology of the internet and how we view it and what it could lead to, And I think that's a good inaugural idea.
I think that's actually a pretty good identity to set. Like any other long-running franchise, I'm not saying that this is going to be a long-running franchise. Who knows?
It could be long-running.
If it happens,
between all of us, we could have no followers, and it could just be.
And we could still just run it just because. But my point is that regardless of the length of this runs, if we capture that as the identity of the podcast, that's such a niche thing that's specific to our group of people that I don't think that anything else outside of other people who are either starting podcasts or already have an established podcast that are within our generation can capture. And I think that if that's the niche that we decide to go with, it will be a good starting point for our podcast because we capture a wide audience where we can capture the insights of both quote unquote the old generation and the current generation and the new generation.
Yeah.
But also transition to a point where we are up to date with how the quote unquote new generation reviews these things because we are the bridge, right?
Yeah. We're like the intermediary. Yeah. I think that's a great place to start, and then everything goes from there. And then if we use that as like we could definitely use that as like the overarching structure of how we treat all of our conversation. Yeah. Like anything that we do could come back to that, and of course, like, and I mean, it doesn't have to be forced in that direction. It's just that like in a time where we live with such proximity to the internet, where everything is online, it's kind of hard to imagine something that doesn't have proximal relations to the internet. And so any conversation that we do have would inevitably have ties to the internet because of that. And so like as our overarching leitmotif, it would be that we use that the bridge to the internet and the internet itself is like the main topic of conversation.
I agree.
Or at least
the beginning, right?
And at least it's the backdrop with which we live our lives, because that's what it literally is at all times. So yeah. I dig it.
We should come up with a name first and foremost. Well, it doesn't have to be a permanent name.
Yeah.
We could come up with something and then find a working title and then decide to come up with something else.
I know. I've got nothing right now.
Neither do I. I have to think about it.
I think
we're dumb enough that we can come up with some stupid names that will be catchy.
I think inevitably it would come out of like shooting shit again.
I agree.
But so, and I hate the idea of anything being super serious. I don't think this
we're
is
not
like,
that kind of people.
It's not like an analytical thing. It's just like it's conversational. And
we're just hanging out and just talking about stuff. And this is the kind of conversation that I enjoy. So
yeah, and I think like it'd be really useful, like to definitely have those. I think it'll be good once if we can get more people on board, because then we'll have the like with different viewpoints come like also nice bits of relief too, because if we talk too much about like, if we get into like essence and aesthetics of the internet, it just becomes a big lecture, and it's like, I think it'd be good to have us all like, the rapport that we all have, and sort of like the fun shit we poke at each other, and like all this stuff we talk about is better. It would be good as well, just to keep it light, you know? But also like, I like it. I like the idea.
It's fun.
So I think over the next week, I'll do my best to see what I can do, but like definitely like create the
let's make a topic list of things that we can talk about.
Let's keep it first at what we just talked about. So like how the internet acts on us and how we work as the intermediary between the two. Write all your questions down, write all your answers down, and more opinions that you find as you write down everything. So
let's make our first pilot about us being the bridge, right? And the topic of social media, because
the point being, why make a podcast in the first place? Like, what's the point if anything? And I think that's a really fitting way to start something like this, right?
We'll come up with the name later and any of the smaller details, but I think for me personally, I already told you before that like I take that back. I don't know if I told you that before, but like as somebody who's trying to explore these creative projects, I'm kind of a person who absolutely hates hanging on an idea and leaving it in quote unquote purgatory.
Horrible.
Especially both of you, Peter and JP, since you guys are musicians, and that's very much just like a creative career or like pathway.
I don't know.
Having an idea, just stick around and not doing it. That's the worst.
I do that shit all the time. I mean, do you do the same thing?
What?
Like you might think of a groove that you're like, this might sound good, but you just don't execute on it at all.
Or like like you want to do something with it, and you're like, oh, this is solid, and then you just like you don't end up actually making something out of it, and it falls into that purgatory of creativity, like ideas that you have.
Yeah. So for me, I'm very much the type of person where if I have an idea, even the slightest idea that I think that I want to do it, I'm gonna do it regardless of if it's shitty or if it's low quality or if it's good quality. I just want to do it to have some exposure to the idea, and after doing that idea that I had in my head in the first place, I can determine from that point, after having my toes dipped in the water, I can decide from there, is this something that I think I can continue to take further, or after I've dipped my toes in the water, is it dead? You know?
I think you, and as you said before, you can't know
until you do it.
Yeah, so you might as well do it. So
why not?
Answers already know unless you try, right?
I mean, like we all banter so well that it would be like
we're so good. We're so literate.
We might as well just we're like really literate and articulate, and like you might as well just.
You trying to start a podcast?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I'm not even kidding you.
Yeah, we wanted to start next week.
All this talk is about
kind of. I've low key talked about some of my other high school and college friends that. They know that you're a group of friends outside of them that I've talked about. I said, I have these friends in Elk Grove. I lovingly refer to you guys as the EG crew because that's how it's supposed to be.
What up?
Yeah. The EG crew, they're my closest group of friends throughout my entire life that I have very good conversation with. And I told them, I was like, one of our ideas, because we're all kind of the creative type, is we want to do a podcast because we want to. Not because there's money involved with it, not because we think we're better than anyone, not because we think we have insights that nobody can offer. We want to do it because we want to do it.
Yeah.
That there's nothing else behind it other than that we think this is something that we want to try. You know,
I was telling Peter about this, and I made Peter listen to this podcast with me while we were driving to the park, and what the guy Malcolm Gladwell, you must you should listen to Malcolm Gladwell's podcast called Revisionist History, where he basically takes like things that have happened and then he restudies it and provides a different perspective on it. Anyways, it's excellent. I love it. And what he said in one of the episodes was it had to do with being disagreeable, and disagreeable in a way that meant that you have less regard for what people think about what you're doing. And for me, when he was talking about that translated into like, you know, I think that's one of the most fundamental characters of being creative and having and being someone who isn't sheep, you know, who isn't following, who isn't playing into the same conventions that we all do, that like society falls into when we do anything. And so like being a disagreeable, like you can start these it gives you the creative it gives you the creative balls to like just start something new without really caring about what anyone else thinks about it, as long as it's true to you. You know, and I mean, he says in the end, like, you know, it's, you know, it's important to be disagreeable to a degree. So like, I think like this us doing this would just be enacting that. Yeah. And it's something where like, you know, it's an idea and it's a project that we want to just get off the ground. And in order to do that, it would require that we have this a slight bit of disagreeableness.
For podcasts specifically, there is a quote from another podcast I listened to. I'll just loop one big loop. Where they said, if there's no difference in opinions, there's no conversation. Which I believe is 100% true. Like you said, there's a whole sheep or hive mind mindset. Where if everyone is just a yes man, nothing gets discussed, no changes are made. And like you said, there doesn't necessarily have to be wildly different opinions or opposing opinions. It would be slightly different. Just I have one viewpoint that the other person might not have necessarily acknowledged. And if we can bring that together in one common form, then I think that this is something that we can run with. You know, that's something that we can keep the lifeline of the whole podcast going if we decided to do this.
And I think that's something something that this group would do well, just because of how we mentioned before, like all the differing career paths and all the differing like life choices we all make. Like it would really just facilitate that sort of discussion. And I think like what's nice about it too is that we all pretty much know the rules of discussion and debate.
Yeah.
We're all like pretty good at it, and I mean, I think that it would be really interesting if we were able to say things and to make claims and to have like people we didn't know
see it, right?
Like see it and then give feedback, because discussion is truly the birth of creativity, and also it's like creativity feeds off of discussion.
I agree.
You can't. It's hard to say. I mean, I guess this is something that we could discuss in the future. But I think that like, I don't know if creativity is. I don't know if creativity is birthed in silence. I think like creativity like sort of comes out of like all
noise.
It comes out of the noise that like if we're thinking of it illustratively, like the noise acts as like its as its roots, as it's like as the thing that gives its nutrient, and like it forces you to like strengthen or steel your resolve in a specific way to keep the creative thing going. Otherwise it falls into everything else, and then you start anew.
And then you start conforming, and then you just become another BuzzFeed.
right. So I mean,
not to shit on BuzzFeed, but I mean,
to BuzzFeed's credit, they do have they do put out like
they started out occasionally they put out those glimpses of brilliance.
They do have really like some great brilliant investigative journalism. And
same thing with Vice. I mean, those are the cases where those companies and those people that have been in that specific sector of journalism have probably been in the game so long where they probably had the same start that we did. You know, they were very excited to start something new, and they had all these bright ideas. And then after X amount of time, they started to acknowledge, well, there's only so much that we can do until new information or new events happen that we can talk about. So
but I also think that like BuzzFeed really played into a different type of game. BuzzFeed really played into like social media,
broader audience,
and it played into just like the ease of access that the internet provides.
God, dude, I'm so excited to start this. I know we've been talking about this for the last like couple months, but like the more we talk about it, the more realistic it happens. And like I said, I am the type of person who wants to execute on something that is an idea, and I don't want it to stick in purgatory just because I just want to see how it plays out. So
I mean, I'm down.
I'm 100% down for this.
I'm perfectly game.
So
let's do it.
Our maybe next weekend the Goose Island tour. We'll see if something can come out of that.
I'm totally down for that.
Okay.
Yes, we can. I also think, just for the sake of discussion, I think it'd be useful to like, we should definitely like take the cast on tour. Like, if we ever do things, like if we ever travel to like a different state,
we'll do stuff.
And like we can like take hey, we're taking a break to do a quick thing, do a quick like session out here,
and then come back and have some more stuff to talk about.
And it's like it's little reprieves. I would say like a nice thing that we could do is like I know that I've talked about going camping. I think that if we ever went camping, like we could like go out and just like have some time, and then like do a quick 30-minute to an hour thing with that, and then
absolutely.
just like talk about like what we did, like maybe plug the place we're at, say, and like I don't know, just talk about it and see like what happens. I think it's good for recording. Like it's good for recording what we do on a different sort of level, and then also just like it's good it's good material.
And we already talked about the idea that we can record this all as we are now, and then 5, 10, 15, 20 years later we look at it and we're like, wow, look at that point of our lives, and this is just out. And then we can talk to our grandkids and be like, wait, listen to this. This is my insight when I was your age. I was a dumbass. You listen to this now.
Listen to it. Don't make the same mistakes I made. No, I like that. I think like we could definitely make that happen. But we definitely need to make practical steps towards the goal, so we can actually start it. And then I think once it's off the ground, like once we get the thing flying, like it'll fly and it'll be smooth. and then we'll just be able to like build off of that.
I think we have the benefit of we got to listen to other people trial and error their podcast before we even try to attempt ours, and just kind of learn from them first. So who knows what they're saying. Watch this actually pan out into a huge thing, and then we become like the next Good Mythical Morning.
That would be really solid.
If my entire life's career panned out because of the internet and my regular passions were a hobby but also a passion that somehow produced stuff that I liked out of it. Woo! Hey, this is the Wild Wild West, my boy.
You should listen to. I think in the meantime, we should definitely just keep listening to more podcasts. And then what I'm gonna do this week is because I just have so much time driving, I'm gonna try and look up podcasts that are similar to this idea.
See what they do wrong, see what they do right.
Yeah, see what they do. Like maybe see what they talk about, and maybe like what I don't like about that we can take into account and like make sure that we don't fall into.
We'll discuss it for our pilot episode about what we should do and what we shouldn't.
Yeah, right. We have that. I think, and so I think so. We have two things on the agenda. Then it's like we both should do that thing that I mentioned where we ask the question, and we talk about it, and we think about what it means to us, and then we should have communal questions about. We should agree on communal questions, and then our like individual personal questions will come out of that. So let's try and do that by a certain day this week. Maybe like by Monday we can try and get some. We can try and put out some really some good like questions that would just steer us in the right direction. And then just like having some like opinions and having some other questions of your own laid out in preparation for that as well. And then we can just talk and we can have the same thing. We can have the same thing going on. And then if it ends up going to a different place, I would suggest that we write it down. I'll probably have stuff ready so that I just remember where we're going. And the other thing too, and then second step would be, let's definitely just like, let's put out feelers for like what other podcasts are like. And then like people listening to the ones you
plugs for them, and then maybe they'll plug us in the future if we end up becoming big.
And I think, I mean, podcasts travel by word of mouth so easily. So I think that like, I think just listening in general to any podcast, I will probably do that exclusively this week as I've been doing the last 3 weeks. Just because there's a certain point where I get really tired of listening to music and I want to hear people talking. It's soothing. It's soothing. So like, we'll do that. And then I'll probably tell you what I don't like about some like other podcasts. You feel free to, like if you listen to Funhouse or you listen to like, do you ever listen to the Super Best Friends podcast?
I love Super Best Friends. They're great.
And if you listen to any of those and you do find things that you don't like, which will now become more apparent because you're going to start doing this. I think like definitely keep them in mind and we can discuss it and we can put that in the cast and just have that be a part of it. And then the Twitch we should definitely get on too, because Twitch is just helpful.
They have a whole like, Twitch is a whole nother monster. We'll make a whole podcast dedicated
to Twitch, but I think we should also just do Twitch. I think we should.
And we can just that's the other like creative avenue that I wanted to do.
Just like we did with Doki Doki.
That was a fun like first step.
I think just like we have to find another game to play. And
there's tons out there.
Oh, we could plug it.
Dude, that's the whole deal. I could upload. I could either create a new channel for us specifically, or I could upload to my channel, and then we'll just see how it goes, because there's so many different ways to approach this. So
wait, you don't have that DDLC one, do you?
No, I wish we saved the VOD. I did not take the option to save the VOD for that. And I was also worried if that rig or not could handle saving the VOD on top of us streaming at the same time. So we'll see. If anything, we should try to do it at my place, because my rig's a little bit more powerful, and then we'll try to do that and for the streaming.
And we can try and get the other ending to it.
That'd be fun. I'd like to,
because it's on your account, right?
Well, no, you downloaded it on
this computer.
I think Jordan. No, it might be Peter's. Whatever. Doesn't matter. We would have to delete the first run anyways to do it anyways. So
fine. I'm down.
All right, fist bump. We're gonna do this.
We're gonna do it.
We're gonna execute on this. This is our pre-discussion.
Pre-discussion. I hope you recorded a bunch of it.
Yes, it is, so that I remembered all of this happening.
Hello.
This is a pilot to the pilot, okay? All right.
The inaugural pilot featuring Aaron Portante, JP Pendowski, and
we'll come up with a name later. Oh, look at that. 1 hour, an hour and 9 minutes. It's not bad.
Yeah. So we're right on schedule.
So first pilot to the pilot, and then
this will be on be on the added bonuses to the season 1 we have.
The audio will probably be really shitty, but I'll deal with it. I know how to deal with it. So.
Yeah.
All right, I need to pee really fast.
All right, good shit, everyone.
Oh.